Adele's output is prodigious. I mean, a book a year. I mean, not just that, but from a sort of standing start, which had her very first book playing away as the biggest debut novel of its year. And she's kept that up ever since, staying in the top 10 with each successive one. This one is a bit different. It's your first historical novel.
Correct, yes. I sort of laughed in the face of that idiom, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and just thought I'd try something different.
Right, and it has worked fantastically well. Now, I think it's true to say that you first sort of encountered the First World War on a school trip. Is that right?
Correct, yes. When I was about 12, I think, I went on a school trip to northern France. And up until then, I didn't really know much at all about World War I thought it was remote, it was masculine, it was very much over there. It didn't, I couldn't relate to it. And I remember when I saw these endless, countless, sort of identical graves, again, just the scale was obviously, you know, a huge impact about the scale. But again, I didn't really relate to it because it seemed to me it was very, as I say, masculine. But as years have gone on, and obviously as I've matured and grown out of that sort of self-obsession that children have, I began to understand the enormity of that sacrifice and the enormity that we'd never seen the like before. And I just felt there was something there that I had to write about. And
I have read that there were two people in your early life who you thought of as great aunts, Edna and Enid.
Yes, so I was very lucky, actually, that until I was 16 years old, I had two great-grandmas. So whilst I talked about the war, World War I, as very masculine over there, I did have living relatives that had lived through World War I, and indeed my great-grandfather, who wasn't alive, but he had fought in, one of them had fought in World War I. The other had actually fought in the Boer Wars and was too old to fight in World War I. But we had these sort of, we had lots of old people in our lives. We were the kind of family that we were quite, you know, every Sunday we would all go and visit the extended family. And we used to visit Aunt Edna and Aunt Enid. And they weren't aunts at all, but we had to give them that title of respect, which no problem with. But I remember years later sort of working out, well, where do they fit in? And trying to work it out, you know, where do they fit in? And we used to go and be told to sort of behave well and not to mention the war. Which actually, to be honest, two little girls, because my sister and I, chances of mentioning the war was very slight. But it was quite interesting that we were given this warning. And the warning came from the fact that one of the aunts had lost her fiancé in World War I, and the other had lost her opportunities in World War I. There was never a man in her life. And those people started playing in my mind, because I think we all know the war, that there was this incredible sacrifice that in the UK alone, over 800,000 men of marrying age died. And then countless, probably the same number again, came home with horrific injuries, blindness, lost limbs, and then again a number that we just can't even begin to imagine, with what we now recognise as shell shock, trauma, but in those days they just didn't recognise it. So we know that story, we know the men suffering, and quite right we ought, but what was it like for the women? What was it like for the families? What was it like for the girls that lost their fiancés, their brothers, their fathers, their sons? What was it like to try and pick up the pieces afterwards? And that's actually what the book's about. It's not about the war, it's about picking up the pieces afterwards.